Hey everyone, my name is Jack, and in this video I want to dispel this notion that you can have too many credit cards or that having a certain number of credit cards will adversely affect your score. Unfortunately, this is a rather popular myth, and it usually comes from not understanding how a credit score works in the first place. Now, in a previous video, I went over the 5 major factors that go into your credit score and the steps that you can take to improve it. I'll put a link to that video on the screen right about now. But in short, the 5 major factors that go into your credit score are your payment history, your utilization rate, your length of credit history, your credit mix, and then any new credit that you might have open. As you may have noticed, nowhere in these 5 factors is number of cards suggested as a relevant factor. Holding on to a ton of credit cards is not going to change your score in the slightest. Having 100 credit cards totaling $100,000 in available credit, or having 10 credit cards with the same credit limit is not going to affect your score either way, assuming everything else is equal. But this distinction does bring up a few important things to keep in mind as you're figuring out how you can go about improving your credit score over the long haul. Although the number of cards itself doesn't make a difference, having more credit available to you will help to decrease your utilization rate, which will thus increase your score. As a reminder, your utilization rate is the total amount of credit that you are currently using over the total amount of credit that you have available to you. The lower this number, the better. When you open up new cards or new lines of credit, you're inevitably increasing the amount of credit that's available to you, and as long as you're not maxing out your cards, this will lower your utilization rate. Closing cards just because you think you have too many will inevitably lower this utilization rate and will probably ding your score for the worse. Another drawback of closing cards, especially older cards, is that you can decrease your length of credit history, which will also decrease your credit score. When you close your oldest cards, you are decreasing your average length of credit history. So as long as that old card doesn't have a big fee or something attached to it, you might as well leave it open because closing it will affect your score negatively. The only time it makes sense to close, especially an older card, is when that card has a hefty fee and the fee cannot be justified by any of the card benefits that you might be getting from it. Whenever you're deciding to close a card with or without a fee, consider how it will negatively affect your credit score. Now, another advantage with opening new cards all the time is that you can usually take advantage of introductory offers like for free travel or rewards points and getting lots of cash back. I was able to cover my entire honeymoon's airfare by using rewards points from an introductory offer doing this strategy. So opening new cards certainly has its benefits when you can take advantage of introductory offers and do things like travel hacking. In other words, while you open up new cards to expand your credit limit and ideally boost your score that way, you can also be reaping quite a few rewards that you can use in the meantime. Of course, there is a drawback to opening many cards, and that's that any new credit will negatively affect your score, and you don't want to apply for a ton of new cards in a short period of time, as that can really bring your score down to the point where you might not even qualify for those reward offers anymore. A best practice is to at least spread out your credit applications every year, if not over a few years, to avoid bringing your score down too low, and generally not to have more than about 4 credit applications in any given year. Regardless of the total amount of cards you have, you should treat each of them as responsibly as you would all of the others, since you should always be making minimum payments each month to avoid really hurting your credit score. Even if you have 1,000 credit cards, missing payments on even just one of them when you've never missed any before is going to drastically reduce your score, and that's obviously something you want to avoid. The number of cards you have should never change how responsible you are with managing your credit cards, your entire debt load, and your personal finances in general. But as you're managing all of your cards and your personal finances, if it makes sense to get rid of a card because it has too hefty of a fee, by all means do it. But just make sure to take all of these considerations into account before you make the decision. So can you have too many credit cards?
No.
The answer is no, at least from a credit score perspective, since when your score is calculated, the number of cards is not taken into consideration. That said, always make sure to keep tabs on your currently open credit and have a very concrete plan before you apply for any new credit. Misusing or mismanaging credit can lead to all sorts of problems. Thankfully, having a ton of cards is not going to do that. I hope this video was able to dispel the myth that you can have too many credit cards to the point where it affects your score, since that is simply not the case. If you liked this video or found it helpful, be sure to give it a like as it helps the channel out a lot. If you have any questions that went unanswered, be sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, take care.